Willkommen. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sean Huggins. This is React with Hugs, and today we got a very fun video plan. Check this out. Germany's World War III plan. Oh my gosh. This is from Infographics Show. Check them out, linked in the description as always. But Germany's World War III plan. This sounds like a crazy video already, so I am curious and excited to hop straight in. Let's waste no time. Let's get into it. Los geht's.
Germany is one of the guarantors of European security, and yet the entire world questions if Germany's military is up to the task. Is Germany ready to fight a major conflict in Europe, and how would it perform? Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a wake-up call for a complacent, pacifist Europe. After the end of the Cold War, Europe had a reason to relax. But while everyone was taking siestas and sipping espressos at their favorite bistro, Russia was plotting. When Russia first invaded Ukraine in 2014, Europe hardly blinked because not only had it become complacent, but it had become extremely dependent on the energy supplied by the only challenged their own national security. Nobody was more guilty of this than Germany, who foolishly believed it could sway Moscow via trade dependence. Instead, Germany handed Putin the very reins of its economy. The second invasion of Ukraine at last woke Europe up to the fact that it still had a belligerent, much bigger neighbor on its border. By then, though, the state of many European militaries was utterly abysmal, and few major European powers were in worse shape than Germany. During the Cold War, the readiness rate of the West German military hovered around 90%. Today, that figure is anywhere between 20 to 40%.
20 to 40%. The percent of the military that is ready to go, ready for battle, ready to do their job is 20 to 40%. Oh my gosh. I mean, I've been watching videos on Germany for a while now, but this is still surprising to me. I still can't believe this.
Meaning that only 20 to 40% of its personnel and equipment is ready for immediate action. For years, Germany couldn't even meet its NATO commitments to the Rapid Response Force established during the Obama presidency to counter sudden Russian aggression unless it first cannibalized other units for supplies and gear. In 2018, Jorge Benitez of the Atlantic Council think tank stated, "The readiness of the German military is abysmal. For years, German leaders have known that major elements of their armed forces, such as tanks, submarines, and fighter jets, are not fully operational and can't be used for actual military missions." Despite Germany's strong economy, its military was found to be one of the weakest on the continent. Famously, President Donald Trump considered Germany a freeloader, coasting on the might of the US and the rest of NATO as guarantors of its own security. At the same time, not a single one of Germany's submarines could take to sea. Only 4 of its 128 Eurofighters were prepared for combat, and the Army's vehicles were unprepared to meet NATO combat requirements. Its troops had no body armor, no night vision equipment, and even lacked cold weather clothing.
Dude, this is like worse than I thought.
How in the world could one of Europe's economic powerhouses have a military incapable of defending even its own borders? The answer is a strong pacifist streak amongst German policymakers, but also a willingness to sacrifice on security in order to stimulate its national economy. And when you've got one of the largest concentrations of American troops outside of the US borders in your territory, you probably feel pretty secure. Hiding under America's skirts, Germany instead preferred to spend its money on everything but defense, crippling its ability to fight even a light-intensity conflict. But German society is also deeply uncomfortable with military spending, and given its history in the first half of the 20th century, it is easy to see why. In a 2018 poll, 51% of those surveyed stated that they did not want their military budget to increase, despite a pledge to NATO in 2014 to finally hit 2% of GDP spending on its own defense. 13% wanted even further cuts. Time and again, Germany tried to push through some legislature to increase military spending, but inevitably it was either slashed or failed to pass into law, with the funds instead being diverted to social welfare programs.
I mean, it's hard to argue that spending money on social welfare programs over the military is a bad decision. Obviously, as an American, we have the complete opposite. We spend all of the money that we have on the military and as little as possible on social welfare programs. So, you know, who's better off? I don't know. Better quality of life with better social welfare programs, or I guess a better sense of security with a better defense spending or something. I don't know.
programs. Despite this, in 2019, Germany led NATO's Very High Readiness Joint Task Force, designed to quickly deploy to hotspots in Eastern Europe. German defense documents leaked to the public by the Die Welt newspaper showed that the German contingent of this task force only had 9 of the 44 Leopard 2 tanks it needed operational, and only 3 of the 14 Marder armored personnel carriers.
Dude, how is this even happening, though? Germany, the place of rules and regulations and perfectionism and all this stuff that you hear about, and they let stuff like this slide for so long? How?
The German Air Force's readiness was even worse, needing partner support to even get a fraction of its air power to the skies.
Wow.
The security situation is critical thanks to a resurgent Russia, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz declared an end to the decline of the German military by pledging a $104 billion increase in defense spending and to meet NATO's requirement of 2% of GDP. Yet already there are doubts that more than half of this money will actually end up being procured and spent on the military, and Germany's bold rearmament plans might be nothing but hot air. Europe's largest economy could once more end up coasting on the strength of its NATO partners, outsourcing its own defense while spending money elsewhere. For a long time, Germany's European partners were deeply uncomfortable with a military resurgence for Germany, for very obvious reasons. However, in recent years, opinion polls show that the rest of Europe is a lot more comfortable with the idea of a strong German military than in previous decades. In fact, much of the world sees it as a necessity for the stability of Western democracies, especially as Russia and China rise to challenge the world order with their own authoritarian models. Fears that NATO might fall apart, spurred on largely by the Donald Trump presidency, has even led people like France's Emmanuel Macron to push for Europe to guarantee its own security with a powerful EU military.
I think that is great on paper, especially since Donnie T is coming back for a second term now. So anything is possible. But I think it's also easier said than done, you know, especially for Germany when it's been in such a bad state for so long. It's hard to just instantly turn around, overnight.
Germany would necessarily be the centerpiece of such a military if it got its act together. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has successfully swayed the German public opinion, though, with now 63% stating that they support the plan to spend $104 billion on the military in the coming years.
Wow.
But Chancellor Scholz hasn't done himself or Germany any favors. His longtime refusal and constant moving of the goalposts in regards to sending Leopard 2s to Ukraine has eroded Germany's credibility, to the point that much of Europe is once more looking at the US for leadership in its own backyard. When it comes to military spending, Olaf is once more waffling, stating one day that he doesn't wish to repeat the mistakes of pre-World War I Germany in rearming itself, while the next day stating that a strong German military would encourage its NATO allies, that the nation can be counted on. Scholz has done so much
classic political flip-flopping. You hate to see
waffling since the invasion of Ukraine. The man practically runs his own Waffle House at this point, and it's hurting Germany's image abroad. The Polish people have developed a very low opinion of their neighbor, with Polish President Andrzej Duda stating, "The mood here is very critical. Germany's just not a credible power because it has been moving so slowly. The focus in Poland is so much about what the US and Great Britain are doing." So, is Germany ready for a third global war? No, it isn't. Readiness rates have not improved much since 2018, though we can expect to see this improve in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The German Air Force still struggles to put planes in the air or give its pilots enough flight hours to remain qualified on their combat jets.
Dude, what? Wait. Oh man, imagine you join the military and you're a fighter pilot, you're a fighter jet pilot, and you're in the military, you're actively serving in the military, and you can't even fly your own plane long enough to remain qualified to fly your own plane because of the amount of hours that you actually get. Dude, what? How is that? This is blowing my mind.
To be prepared for a major power conflict, Germany needs to reverse course on decisions made as far back as 2008. Back then, German defense thinking gravitated around the reduction of the German military to become a light expeditionary force. This suited the nation's current needs and greeds perfectly, as it faced no credible threat at home, was so intertwined in trade with Russia that it believed Moscow wouldn't threaten their economic relationship, and at the time was only fighting low-intensity conflicts against insurgent or terror groups in the Middle East. Thus, German heavy fighting units began to be dramatically cut, with heavy combat vehicles being slashed first. Currently, Germany is unlikely to be able to field even a single heavy brigade, let alone keep it supplied during high-intensity combat ops. Currently, according to a German Ministry of Defense analysis, 71 of Germany's major combat systems have readiness rates of about 77%. This is a vast improvement, but many in NATO are casting a skeptical eye on the report, given the German military's previous problems with readiness. 11 systems had readiness ratings of under 50% though, with combat vehicles standing at 71%. Naval combat units stood at 72%, combat and transport aircraft were at 65%, support vehicles at 82%, and helicopters at an abysmal 40%.
40%?
The report also found that despite improved readiness rates, the German
Dude, they got a long way to go. What are you guys doing over there, Germany?
military was struggling with modernity issues. Many of its armored vehicles were either severely aged or obsolete. Its CH-53 helicopters and P-3C patrol aircraft were in states of crisis and in dire need of replacement. Its attack helicopters were also in serious trouble and facing big modernity problems. At sea, the problem is even worse, with only 30% of the German Navy being fully operational. But the readiness figures have been cleverly manipulated, as these figures only account for equipment that the military actually has available and on hand. The numbers don't account for equipment that is either being repaired or upgraded by the manufacturer. Of 289 Leopard 2s, only 183 of them are actually available to the Army, or 63%. Germany then claims a readiness rate of 75%, which means only 137, less than half of the entire fleet, is actually ready for combat operations today. To turn things around, Germany needs to restructure its defense industry from the bottom up. Currently, German defense manufacturers work with a very small number of orders per year. Therefore, in order to avoid shutting a production line down and losing technical expertise, German arms manufacturers instead work very slowly, dragging the work on each vehicle sent for repair or upgrade out over months. Increased spending will necessarily mean more production.
So in order to have enough work to do, the people that repair the vehicles and everything, they take their time and work really slow so that they never fix everything, because if they fix everything, then they don't have a job anymore, basically, is what he's saying. Okay, interesting.
But even during protracted lulls, Germany needs to absorb the economic impact of keeping a set number of production and repair facilities fully staffed and prepared at all times, instead of shutting them down and consolidating to a smaller number of facilities. Changing German culture will also be necessary for Germany to repair its military. Currently, Germany is experiencing a surge in popular support for defense spending. But should the Ukrainian war end in the near future, it's unlikely the support will continue. When it comes to defense, modern Germans are notoriously short-sighted. For one, there's no strong cultural support for the military in Germany, and the military must compete with civilian employers to attract soldiers.
Yeah, I think that in one of the videos that I watched on this channel, it said that the German military is struggling to recruit new members. It's struggling to barely keep up with the people that are old and retiring and leaving the military, being able to get enough people to replace them, and it's not growing at all. It's basically just breaking even so that they're not shrinking and they're not growing, but they would like to be growing, but they can't find enough people to recruit at this time. Interesting.
Given that Germany only ended conscription in 2011 and is having great difficulty implementing an all-volunteer force, these do not look like problems that Germany is set to solve anytime soon. How would Germany fight a major global conflict in its backyard? Simply put, not very well. One must not underestimate German industry and its historical power to pump out weapons at high intensity. But modern warfare moves incredibly quickly and consumes resources at a truly astonishing rate. Even the United States found itself seriously reconsidering the readiness of both its military and military-industrial capacity after the first few months of fighting in Ukraine. That's why it's important for Germany to build a strong military and military-industrial complex today. For now, the best that Germany could do is provide logistical support and perhaps, at best, a heavy combat brigade. Germany would rely on the US and the rest of NATO partners for all of the heavy lifting. Its naval forces, with a readiness rate hovering around 30%, would be essentially useless on their own, and instead what ships could actually sail would find themselves thrown into American or European formations under the command of foreign admirals. Likewise, its air force would be relegated to fulfilling niche obligations incapable of sustaining high-tempo combat ops on the front line.
Dang.
For the sake of European security and the credibility of Western democracies, Germany must reverse course now. The time of coasting on the defense capabilities of others is over.
Wow. Okay, that was pretty eye-opening. Though I will have to say, I don't think that it's as easy as saying that we could just spend more money on defense and that will basically make the military stronger, because it takes time to train people, recruit people, get people experience with their jobs and all kinds of other stuff. And that's if you actually spend the money efficiently. If you spend the money inefficiently and you waste a lot of the money, which is apparently what Germany is doing, then it's going to take even longer to turn it all around. But I do think that Germany can and will turn their military around because, well, history has proven that Germany's got it. Germany has a deep, dark secret hidden inside of them that is just waiting to be woken up. And so I think that it definitely can and will turn around. It's just a question of how long will that take. Hopefully not too long. That's the key. Hopefully not too long. But that being said, I'm curious what you guys, the experts, have to say about it, since you are German, most likely, after all. What do you have to say? What do you think about it? Let me know your thoughts. Leave your mustard down in the comment section below. But that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.